The newest anthologies have been revealed for the Arena client, and they're coming on July the 18th, which is next Tuesday. So we need to figure out what's good, what's bad, and like what really has good interest for us in the Historic Brawl format. Now, I'm not going to go over all the cards in the anthologies because a lot of these are just junk. They should never have been put in the anthologies to begin with, and I just don't see why they're here. But for the rest of the anthologies, first up, we have Cyclonic Rift, 1 in a blue, return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand, or overload it for 6 in a blue, replacing the word target with each. This is an all-star in Commander, and I think it's going to see quite a bit of play in Historic Brawl, so it's probably worth getting at least a copy if that is your format of choice, but I don't see it seeing 4 of play in the Explorer or Historic formats. Another card that I see seeing some play, especially if you're in a deck that has just a bunch of ancillary artifacts laying around, is Shrapnel Blast. For 1 in a red, you get an instant. As an additional cost to cast a spell, sack an artifact. It deals 5 damage to any target. For 2 mana, Shrapnel Blast does a ton of damage to somebody. In a standard 60 card format, it's a 25% hit of their life just for sacrificing like a treasure or a food or a blood or anything like that. Or just, just fling something at somebody's like biggest creature and get rid of it. I think this is also going to see quite a bit of play in artifact-based decks in the Historic Brawl format. And it being an uncommon, it's really easy to get your hands on it. So I think it's worth at least crafting a copy for Historic Brawl. Green is where things get a little more interesting from this one. We have several cards that could see play, and I do think, depending on what kind of deck you're playing, they are worth crafting at least a copy of for Historic Brawl. First up, we have Eidolon of Blossoms, 2 green, 2/2, enchantment creature spirit. Whenever it or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. So if you're playing an Enchantress style deck, this is almost a must-have type card for the deck to keep it flowing, and it's worth a copy there. Court of Calling is also here for triple green and X, convoke instant. Search your library for a creature card with mana value X or less, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. So if you're playing like a tokens deck or a small ball type deck where you can use those creatures to convoke this to get a bigger, badder threat onto the board, this is actually a really good card and has seen a lot of play in the past, and I do think it works out really well for Historic Brawl. A couple more cards of interest out of this one that I like are Omnath, Locus of Rage. For 3 red, green, you get a 5/5 elemental with landfall that says when a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 5/5 red and green elemental creature token, and whenever it or another elemental you control dies, deal 3 damage to any target. This was a very popular commander years ago when the commander format was just starting to take off, and it does see quite a bit of play today, even if it's not as the front-facing commander, but as part of the 99 for other Omnath decks. And I think it's going to see play as a commander on the client, and I'm planning on creating a copy of it for myself. And another good card from the multicolor section they are putting on here is Xenagos, God of Revels. For 3, a green and a red, you get a 6/5 legendary enchantment creature God. It has indestructible, and as long as your devotion to red and green is less than 7, it is not a creature. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, another target creature you control gets +X/+X in haste, where X is the creature's power. So this thing can make, a decent sized trampler into a massive problem for somebody. And then on top of that, you can go ahead and if you double something really big and then you can fling it at somebody, or you can stack like damage doublers and triplers with this thing. This can get out of hand really freaking quick. And I love Xenagos, and I'm planning on making a copy for my own collection. The only other thing that might be of interest to players in this collection that I know of is the lands that are in here. They do have what I call the enters tapped unless you control 2 or more basics. They're like a type of check land. Canopy Vista, Cinderglade, Smoldering Marsh, Sunken Hollow, and Prairie Stream. But if you've already got a bunch of good duels in your collection, adding one more really isn't going to work, that great for us. It's whatever. But if you need duels in your collection, these are some good ones to look at. And then there's also Thespian Stage, which might have some uses with some lands, but we're missing the one thing that this thing does well for us. You can pay 2 and tap, and it becomes a copy of a land, except for it has the ability to do it again. But at the same time, we are missing one of the key cards from Commander that most players love copying this with, and that is either Dark Depths or Cabal Coffers. Neither one of those are in the client, so it's hard for me to get behind using Thespian Stage for anything like that. Out of the other anthology for the historic format, we have a series of cards that I do like in Commander, and I want to try them out in the Arena client for Historic Brawl, and that is the Titan cycle. We have Sun Titan, Frost Titan, Grave Titan, Inferno Titan, and Primeval Titan. These are cards that long have seen play in the Commander format, one of which is actually banned with Primeval Titan, so I'm kind of interested to see how well that works for us here in the Historic Brawl format. But all of them have some special effect of when they enter or they attack, you get something out of them. And my favorites are often the Sun Titan and the Grave Titan. I know for sure I'm making a copy of Grave Titan for myself because I love zombie decks. I have for years, and it's just one of those key cards that I will not cut from my zombie decks. Another card here that's dependent on like what your metagame looks like in your pods and stuff is Echoing Decay. For 1 and a black instant, target creature and all other creatures get with the same name get -2/-2 until end of turn. So if you have people who are all about the tokens and the little small ball stuff that you make a bunch of tokens of, soldiers, the new hobbits that get created, things like that, Echoing Decay can clear up a lot of that stuff for you and then just make it so your stuff survives the pseudo board sweep. We also have an all-star for sacrifice type decks. It's Bloodghast for black, 2/1 Vampire Spirit, can't block, has haste if an opponent has 10 or less life, and landfalls to bring it back from your graveyard to the battlefield. So this thing is great because then you can sacrifice it, play a land, bring it back, and just do it all over again and just keep on getting your sacrifice effects and benefits from doing that. Then we have one of the most headache-inducing cards I've ever played against, Tooth and Nail. For 5 green, you get a sorcery with choose 1, search your library for up to 2 cards, reveal them, put them in your hand, then shuffle 2 creatures, and then put up to 2 creature cards from your hand on the battlefield, and if you pay the extra 2 to entwine it, you get both. So this is a very heavy combo enabler. You're able to go get 2 creatures that just go ham in your deck, such as Kiki-Jiki Mirror Breaker and Zealous Conscripts, and then you make infinite Zealous Conscripts and then smash your opponent. Now, luckily, that combo does not exist in Arena straight up, but we do have Fable of the Mirror Breaker, so you can get it out, get it to flip over into version of Kiki-Jiki that exists in the thing, and once it's able to tap and do its thing, you can use Tooth and Nail to go get creatures that help either protect Kiki-Jiki or give you the infinite combo with the Zealous Conscripts that helps untap Kiki-Jiki every time one of those things come into play. We're also getting a couple artifacts that I absolutely love from this one. We have Wayfarer's Bauble for a colorless, 2 colorless, tap, sack it, go get a basic land card, put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. This card is great for decks that have no access to ramp and that kind of stuff. So anything basically that's not in green, you have ways to get stuff out and ramp ahead. And then we have one of the best swords ever printed, Sword of Fire and Ice. For 3 colorless, you get an artifact equipment, equips for 2, gives the creature +2/+2 pro red and blue, and when it deals combat damage to a player, they take an extra 2 damage to any target, or you draw a card. So, this saw lots of play back when it was first printed. It still sees lots of play in other formats, and this thing is a great card for an equipment-based deck, and I can't wait to try it out. And the last thing that might draw some interest out of this anthology for Historic Brawl players is the lands that are in this cycle. We have Fiery Islet, Sunbathed Canyon, Nurturing Peatland, Silent Clearing, and Waterlogged Grove. These are the lands that you can tap and pay a life to go ahead and get enemy color pairing off of them, or you can cash them in for a colorless and tap and sack, and you draw a card. So if you can't afford to pay the life anymore, or you just need to keep moving along, you can cash it in, get a card, and keep going. These are all right. They're lacking the typing to go search them out with like card typing stuff, but if you need these duels or whatever, it's worth crafting 1 copy of them. But I don't see paying the anthology costs here to get this. So with that said, those are the cards I like coming out of the anthologies. There's a lot of things that are kind of making players mad that they included in here, because there's things that either they don't see play in their respective formats. Like you don't see a Quarter Shield and stuff like that seeing play in Pioneer. So people are like, why is this in here? And on the same time, you don't see things like Cyclonic Rift getting played in those formats either. Those are Historic Brawl plants is what I call those. So I'm not going to buy the anthologies for their cost. I'm probably just going to shell out some wild cards, probably, because it's going to cost me probably about 8 wild cards or so to get what I want, single copies, and move along, which is the benefit of playing Historic Brawl as the format of choice in the game client. So that said, I will see you guys in the next video, and have a great day.